Welcome, everyone. We have chaplains and residents in Sesshin. This is our first full day. We have chaplains who are joining us by Zoom from all over the place who are also sitting this Sesshin with us. We have our beautiful local Sangha here supporting us. And we have who knows who out on YouTube, but many people who join us week after week. I always wonder if there's someone that stumbles in, like you go on YouTube and you Google or you look for drama and you get Dharma. And so welcome. Welcome. Yeah, it's interesting, never to quite know. But in this sesshin, we're not only sitting silently for 4 full days, but we're actually taking up the kind of topic of zazen. And it's such a big part of our life in residency, and it's a big part of our request and the practice of the chaplaincy students to really settle into a deep and regular practice of zazen. So maybe we should have some idea. We probably won't have any idea what we're actually doing, but what we think we're doing, or what our motivation is, and that's important, I think. So just before we begin, is there anyone who's here at Upaya for the first time visiting us? Welcome. And just in a traditional way, I want to begin by thanking my teachers, and by thanking Roshi, and by thanking Shakyamuni Buddha, and all of the people who just really gave so much and dedicated their life to this practice. So I'm going to be talking about zazen, and the title of my talk is A Posture of Unprejudiced Attention. And as I said, we've been basically sitting facing the wall. And many people think of zazen as kind of an introspection, which it's not exactly that. But I wanted to start with something that's a little bit counterintuitive to really bring you into this exploration. So I'm starting with a poem by Jane Hirschfield, and it's a poem called I Open the Window. I opened the window. What I wanted wasn't to let in the wetness. That can be mopped. Nor the cold. There are blankets. What I wanted was the siren, the thunder, the neighbor, the fireworks, the dog's bark. Which of them didn't matter? Yes, this world is perfect, all things as they are. But I wanted not to be the one sleeping soundly on a soft pillow, clean sheets untroubled, dreaming there might still be time, while this everywhere crying. Yes, this world is perfect, all things as they are. But what I wanted not to be the one sleeping soundly on a soft pillow, clean sheets untroubled, dreaming there might still be time, while this everywhere crying. So for these 4 days, for those of us in Sesshin, we'll be silent, we'll be facing the wall, and experiencing in our sitting, experiencing this kind of very ordinary, brave practice of sitting quietly, upright. And it seems like we're doing the very opposite of opening the window. But I started this talk with this poem because in this talk, I want to make a case for facing the wall. I really want to make a case for this zazen practice, for our upright, silent sitting as actually a profound way and a commitment to opening the window. Opening the window to the reality of this moment completely, with nothing excluded and nothing added, and sitting in a posture of open-hearted acceptance and intimacy. And I think our zazen matters partly because, and maybe to a large degree, because it's a posture of unprejudiced attention. This is the title of my talk. And it's taken from a quote by Catherine Thanis, who was my first teacher. And she said, "We sit in zazen to realize there's a deeper awareness existing beneath the active mind. It's the mind of clear observation that witnesses our life from the shore of ease, from a posture of unprejudiced attention." And when I think of these two words, unprejudiced attention, it's radical. And it's a stance that's free, and it's a stance that's powerful. And it's a mind from which clear and wise and creative action emerges. So really, just take a moment and imagine a world where all human beings were committed to and capable of an unprejudiced attention. I think we have to have some kind of a motivation for our sitting practice and to maintain a regular sitting practice. And I think for most of us, the motivation is suffering, our suffering, and the suffering of the world. And we get tired of suffering and we imagine that there's maybe we have some kind of a spark of a vision that things could be otherwise. And that we could meet our lives with love and clarity and equanimity. I don't know how many of you were able to listen to this, but on Sunday, Roshi gave a talk about our bodhisattva activity, and her talk was the bodhisattva's secret and wild promise. And in that talk, she talked about, or she characterized bodhisattvas as anyone who's arisen the aspiration to awaken for the benefit of beings and to alleviate suffering. And I know that chaplaincy students, and I know that residents, and everyone on this call and in this room, that's who we are. And I would even include the one who came in looking for drama on YouTube, but I don't know exactly. So I'm going to bring up various aspects of our sitting practice and just touch on them. One is our intention as we sit, posture, sitting with no gaining idea. This is a big teaching about our sitting. Breath, and also welcoming everything as we sit silently, sitting with all beings. And I'll reference and sometimes quote some old teachers and some present teachers, Hongzhi and Dogen and Suzuki Roshi and Catherine Thanis and Susan Murphy and Roshi, as we take up just opening up somehow as best I can help us do this really simple, ordinary practice. So first, to talk about intention a little bit, because as we teach our zazen practice here at Upaya, we sit down, we gain our posture, we gather our attention, and then touch into our intention. Why are we sitting? What's our intention? So here's a quote from Hongzhi. The practice of true reality is simply to sit serenely in silent introspection. When you fathom this, you cannot be turned around by external causes and conditions. This empty, wide open mind is subtly and correctly illuminated. So we can hear the intentions expressed in this. One is to not be turned around as we move through the world, to not be turned around by external causes and conditions, and also to cultivate a wide open mind that's correctly illuminated. So we bring these intentions to our zazen practice. And you might think for yourself, if you have this practice of recalling your intention, what that is. Often for me, it's, may I be free of my selfishness and self-cherishing so that I can benefit beings. And in our sitting, we cultivate qualities, these qualities actually of a bodhisattva that Roshi was teaching about. And so we use this word cultivating uh, as something that our practice encourages. And one of the things we cultivate is a flexible and open mind and a capacity to respond in a way that's unprejudiced and nimble. So then, juxtaposed to this, we have the teaching, very pervasive, very strong. Zazen is useless. Zazen is completely useless. And because I have this human mind that wants to reconcile, it's just kind of been boggling my mind for years. And I have this urge to reconcile the teaching and that zazen is useless with my motivation for sitting, because I sit because I'm cultivating this kind of a mind. So one of the things Zen practice asks of us is to cultivate a tolerance for cognitive dissonance. And there's many, 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 many things in our teaching that when we put them side by side, it just, it kind of breaks open the rational mind as a koan does. So we do have motivations. We sit to find intimacy directly and to allow this kind of direct experience prior to our mind's mediation, as we just keep letting thoughts arise and pass. And we sit to study the self. We see our mind in all of its constant changing and ebb and flow and distortions. And we sit to cultivate this capacity to be engaged with the reality of our lives. Just stay present, stay engaged without turning away. So in thinking about this, which still do, can't help but do, trying to reconcile this. Zazen is useless. One way that I understand this that's been helpful actually is zazen is useless and not trying to get anything and no gaining idea, actually as a practice instruction. Because I do understand that if we sit down to get something, we're immediately off the mark. If we sit down, we have to let go of expectations and ideas about our zazen, because to sit with these ideas is not to be in zazen. But I want to share something that I read recently from Norman Fisher that just so beautifully touches the heart of how it is that we need to appreciate this fundamental uselessness of zazen. And here's what he says: if we don't appreciate the fundamental uselessness of zazen, then he says, which comes from the fundamental all rightness of our life, then we'll turn it into something acquisitive and busy, just like everything else we do. But to bring in this understanding that our life is fundamentally always, on every moment, okay. And so, of course, we just sit down. But zazen is useless because we're not trying to fix anything. And Norman goes on, the problem is that we're actually incapable of seeing zazen as useless because our minds can't accept the fundamental genuineness and all rightness of our lives. And I think this is a very beautiful teaching. Because, of course, we want more. And so we proliferate and sort and judge and fix. And we resist this simplicity and this wholeness and this all rightness. So a few words moving on to another aspect about posture and what matters and what doesn't matter. Posture, and a specific posture, is taught over and over again. The upright posture of our zazen, strong back, weight on our sits bones, lifting up the crown of our head, eyes open and relaxed. And there's many, many examples of how we hold this posture of zazen. But why? You know, how does it support us, really? Because we know it's not that we're trying to impress or look good for anybody. For one thing, because we're all facing the wall, so there's that. But you know, how is this posture important? So I want to turn to Suzuki Roshi for this. Here's what he says, or there's several things that are helpful. He says, these forms are not a means of attaining the right state of mind. In other words, the posture is not a means of attaining the right state of mind. It is, in fact, itself the purpose of our practice. It's an expression already of your state of mind, of an upright state of mind. So there's no need to try to attain anything special. Your posture is a complete expression, and you'll see this described in a number of ways. And he also talks about, well, first let me say this, because this is something that helps me often. He says, in this zazen posture, your mind and body have great power in this uprightness and stillness to accept things as they are, whether agreeable or disagreeable. And this is fundamental to what we're doing when we sit down with ourselves in silence. Accept things as they are. And we sit upright with dignity and with commitment and with humility, and the posture is an expression of all that. But I think it's really important to say, your body is your body. And for every body, there is this stable, upright posture. And so I think it's really important to honor and respect the important point that it's your own physical body. And we have to exist here and now in our own body and mind, in our best manifestation of what it is to be upright. So, what is upright for you? What is stable for you? Suzuki Roshi says, if you slump, you'll lose yourself. And you can feel it. But still, and again to emphasize, your own body, you have to have your own body and mind and establish that stability for yourself. And it doesn't look the same for all of us. And we all have to find our way. And sometimes it's lying down. And sometimes it's sitting in a chair. So, a few words about breath. In Zazen, our basic practice is to follow the breath. And there are many variations and ways to do this, which I'm not going to go into because this isn't really Zazen instruction. But something about our maybe experience of the breath and attitude of the breath. Suzuki Roshi says, if you think I breathe, the I is extra. He describes the breath as a swinging door. So you and I are just present for the breath. In the flow of a moment, we're according with this flow, we're expressing this flow. And the less I that we have that's controlling that breath, the more we can give ourselves up and really, really, really deeply be in accord with the moment. This question of control in Zazen is really important because maybe after years of practice, it will help us even a little be in the world in a loose and flexible and attuned way rather than trying to control out of fear. So in Zazen, we're not moderating or curating our experience or our breath. The request is that we just stop messing with ourselves and trying to make Zazen something and judging our experience and grasping and pushing away. So slowly to gain trust in this ability to be not me-making, to let thoughts come and go. Dogen describes Zazen as unconstructedness in stillness. We're just opening the hand of thought and allowing thoughts and feelings to move through, like clouds in the sky, as we often say in Zazen instruction. But we want to do Zazen, we want to steer the boat, we want to get it right. And that gets in our way. Another clarifying and beautiful quote from Catherine Thanis. She says, we don't do Zazen. Our mind and body unfold according to their own inner necessity. That's the marvelous, unfabricated, inconceivable power of Zen. So over and over again, we come back to the breath and we welcome everything. And this is another invitation and part of our Zazen and our Zen practice. So let me just start with myself. I mean, we don't want to. We don't want to welcome everything. We want to welcome some stuff. And it's a lot. I mean, it's a big request, I think. And it seems absurd. So it's something I think we really need to investigate and not just say, oh, yeah, I know what that means. Okay. No. It's a very deep, very difficult, or not, practice. We need to know what we're really talking about in this realm of radical acceptance when we say we welcome everything. But actually, we don't necessarily do it because we want to, but we welcome it because it's here and we want to live the reality of our lives. And that's the bottom line. And what better way to cultivate the capacity for compassionate action for this unprejudiced mind than to sit in stillness and just welcome everything in our zazen. I'm editing. I want to end a little bit early so that we can really calmly proceed to our oryoki and have some spaciousness. So this is kind of my thing that I have to go, maybe I can give up this piece. Um, uh, so two things I want to tie back into. And one is that welcoming everything requires a not knowing mind, this unprejudiced attention, this unprejudiced mind, openness. And this is what we're enacting in zazen, just this dynamic activity of being present with what shows up. And from that opening, from that not knowing, Roshi's fourth bodhisattva secret power emerges, which is the actualization of spontaneous compassion, this enaction of what we think of as avalokiteshvaras, acting in the world from this place of spontaneity, seamless and unprescribed and unedited, this responsiveness that can really be enacted and arise when we are in accord with the moment. So I want to dip just quickly into this beautiful book by Susan Murphy. It's called A Fire Runs Through All Things. And in this book, she talks about koan practice and zazen practice as a way to meet the incredible, overwhelming, scary state of the world. And particularly, she talks a lot about the climate catastrophe. And so as we're in our zazen and also in koan practice, what we're cultivating is this kind of a mind that's in accord and that's alert, and that's our beginner's mind that's assuming nothing, and that's objecting to nothing, and that's non-contentious in temperament. So she says this, she says, not knowing is the decision to let reality become clear to you, unforced, to sit and walk in a way that's permeable to silence and wonder, letting it resolve and inform you, even as it moves, and moves you most simply to act. And this is what we know of as an appropriate response. I think we're going to hear about this a little bit more from one of our teachers in a couple days. But what she's talking about is embracing what is, not what we thought, because then we're in the space of possibility. Then when we're in this wide open space of possibility that's actually in accord with reality, and anything can arise. Anything can arise. And to take us as this kind of a mind does, just dipping into the very inconceivable part of our zazen, because most of the time when I'm sitting zazen, I just have to have a lot of trust because I'm thinking about what's for lunch, or is Chuck okay at home, or, you know, a million things. And then I come back and come back and come back. And yet the Buddha tells us, and Dogen tells us, that our zazen expresses this vast reality of this one extensive true body in ways far beyond what we can perceive. So I'm going to read you a paragraph from Bendawa, which is one of Dogen's fascicles, where he really celebrates zazen. And just let yourself, let this flow over you as kind of the inconceivable part of what we're doing. Maybe even while you're wondering how you can adjust your posture so your knee doesn't hurt as much. But there you are, just meeting your experience. And this is what Dogen tells us. When even for a moment you express the Buddha's seal in the three actions by sitting upright in samadhi, the whole phenomenal world becomes the Buddha's seal, and the entire sky turns into enlightenment. The zazen of even one person at one moment imperceptibly accords with all things and fully resonates through all time. Thus, in the past, future, and present of the limitless universe, this zazen carries on the Buddha's teaching endlessly. So, just to return to the open window, and I'd like to also end with a lovely quote from Roshi and her characterization of zazen. We're sitting upright and still with an unprejudiced mind, an open heart, an open window to everything and to the cries of the world. Roshi says, Zen is the practice of coming back to the actual right now in this moment self, coming back to the naturalness, the intimacy, and simplicity of our true nature. Zen practice is not about getting away from our life as it is. It is about getting into our life as it is, with all of its vividness, beauty, hardship, joy, and sorrow. So as we sit zazen and as we walk in the Buddha's footsteps, we're not dreaming there might still be time, but rather we're opening the window to this everywhere crying. And bringing a heart and mind that's ready to step in and ask, what's wanted here? Not what can I do, but what does this reality, this moment ask of me? So we'll end with the four vows.